This is section 8.1, and we're starting geometric means. And this is a foldable, and you're going to fold it towards that dotted line. You're going to have to pass it just a little bit.
Good morning, America.
And we're doing geometric means. That's the title of this section. I want to remind you how to solve proportions. In your homework assignment, it says find the geometric mean between these two numbers. And I'm going to do number 1 on the back-hand side just to remind you. To be a geometric mean, it means that the variable that you're looking for is going to be in the middle of this proportion. So when it says to find a geometric mean, the variable is going to be in the middle. We're going to cross multiply. That gives me x squared. And 2 times 8 is 16. Once you have that, you have to do the square root of both sides to get rid of that squared. X is equal to 4 is your answer. So that's what it means when to be a geometric mean. And we're just going to be solving proportions and simplifying radicals. If you open this up to that first one right here. On this picture right here, how we set up the proportion is that it's going to be 2 divided by x is equal to x divided by 50. I'm going to say that again while I write it down. 2 divided by x is equal to x divided by 50. Where this height of the big triangle is your geometric mean, or the one in the middle. We're going to cross multiply. I have 100 is equal to x squared. And then you do the square root of both sides. 10 is equal to x. All right, and if we do it again for this one, our geometric mean would be the height of the big triangle. So you're going to write 8 divided by x is equal to x divided by 10. So again, that was 8 divided by x is equal to x divided by 10. I'm going to cross multiply. I have x squared is equal to 80. And then we have the square root of both sides. X is equal to, since this one gives you a decimal, that means it doesn't simplify. Let's try that again. I don't want the decimal approximation of your answers. See how this one doesn't simplify? So we have to simplify the radical. How we do this again, we're going to hit in y equals. Put 80, because that's the number we're trying to find, simplify, divided by x. And then you hit second graph to go to the table. What you're looking for is a perfect square. So 80 is not a perfect square, neither is 40. 4 is, and 20, but there's a bigger one right here of 16. So we're going to select 16 and 5. So again, why didn't we select 4 and 20? Because 16 is a bigger perfect square. So you're going to do the square root of 16 times the square root of 5. The reason that I wrote the square root of 16 first is because that's the one that simplifies. This becomes 4. And then you just rewrite the square root of 5. And this is the answer I'm looking for. In the answers of this sheet, they give you a lot of decimal approximations. That is not what we're doing in my class. All right, so let's try it again. This is supposed to be 8 divided by 6 and 6 divided by x. Where 6 will be the geometric mean of this triangle. So 8 divided by 6 is equal to 6 divided by x. We're still going to cross multiply. I have 36 is equal to 8x. You're going to divide by 8 to both sides. 36 divided by 8 is a decimal. So for radicals, we are not going to use decimal approximations. But for our work, we can have decimals. So when it's like this and there was no radical, you can write 4.5 is equal to x. So in general, what happened is to be a geometric mean, we had a divided by x is equal to x divided by b. So I made this picture like this to tell you that you start here, you divide by x is equal to x, and then dividing by b. We had to cross multiply. Remember, x times x gave you x squared, and then a times b is just going to be written as ab. I'm going to rewrite it over here just so you know that after that, you have to find the square root of both sides. I do not want a decimal approximation. We're going to be simplifying radicals. These two operations are inverse of each other, so they cancel each other out. You're left with x, and then a simplified radical of AB. All right, on the next portion, we have setting up proportions, and you could set them up in different ways than I'm going to, but I just want to make sure that we know how to analyze these triangles. I'm going to write the similarity statement. In your homework, for example, it says to write similarity statements. This is the answer I'm looking for. We're going to start with the big triangle. In the big triangle, I'm going to write WXY. WXY. As you can see, for the big triangle, the WX is the little side of the big triangle. XY is the long leg, that's what we call it, of the big triangle. And then we got to talk about what this side is called in a right triangle. But we'll do that last. And then we have the triangle XZY. XZY is that medium-sized triangle right here. And then the triangle let's start with W. WZX is the small triangle. So this one right here, WZX. Okay, so why did I change the order? Remember how I told you that WX was the small side of the big triangle? The reason that I had to change the order of the small one is because we have to say the small side of that small triangle. I need you to write a square right here to indicate that that is also a right triangle. This chapter is only about right triangles. So these things are only true when you have right triangles. The side opposite of that 90 degrees is called the hypotenuse. We are no longer going to call it the biggest side, but it is the biggest side of the triangle. So this side is the biggest side of the small triangle. So WY would be the hypotenuse of the big triangle. XZ would be the hypotenuse of this medium triangle. Anyways, and then the sides are the ones that correspond. It is helpful to set up the proportion using the hypotenuse. That's where that H came from. And we call it the small leg and the long leg. You have three similar triangles to work with. So what this is saying is that even though I set it up a particular way, you could set up a different proportion for your homework. Let's take a look. On this first example that we have, the easiest problem to set up is for the Y. So you don't have to do them in alphabetical order. You could do the ones that you see easiest first. I see this one first. And this one's set up by 3 divided by Y. is equal to y divided by 12. So again, it was 3 divided by y is equal to y divided by 12, where y was the geometric mean. We're going to cross multiply. Y squared is equal to 36. Do the square root of both sides. Y is equal to 6. In Algebra 2, it is important to know that anytime you write the square root symbol, it's a positive and negative answer. But for geometry, we only care about the positive since we're talking about lengths. All right, now that we got that one, I'm going to highlight the next proportion. We're going to go to the short leg of the little triangle and then the hypotenuse of the little triangle. Go back for this one, when I talk about this, is the short leg of the big triangle compared to the hypotenuse of the big triangle. So I'm going to say that again. Short leg hypotenuse, short leg hypotenuse. So our proportion is set up by 3 divided by x is equal to x divided by the whole thing, 15. Three plus 12 is the 15. The 3 was the short leg of the little triangle, and x was the hypotenuse of the little triangle. X was the short leg of the big triangle, and 15 was the hypotenuse of the big triangle. Just telling you that the sides that correspond are the ones you set equal to each other. All right, we have x times x gives you x squared. 3 times 15 is 45. Now we're going to do the square root of both sides. The square root undoes the square. And now we're looking for factors of 45 that would simplify. I'm going to remind you how to do this. You go to y equals. You put 45 because that's the number I'm trying to simplify from factors of. Hit second graph. And now you're looking for perfect squares. So,
5 and 9.
very good, 5 and 9. But I'm going to write the square root of 9 first because that simplifies, and then the square root of 5. The square root of 9 becomes 3, and then I rewrite the square root of 5. And this is the answer I'm looking for. We're not going to do decimal approximations. Z can be set up the same way. I'm just not going to highlight it because having all those markings on your notes would be confusing. But we start over here and we're going to do 12 divided by Z. 12 divided by Z is equal to Z divided by 15. Why does that work? This is the long leg of the medium divided by its hypotenuse. This was the long leg of the big triangle divided by its hypotenuse. So again, this was the long leg divided by the hypotenuse of the medium-sized triangle. And this is the long leg of the big triangle divided by the hypotenuse of the big triangle. We're going to cross multiply. Z squared is equal to, so if you're on this screen, the way you get out of this screen is second mode. That takes you back to this one. 12 times 15 is 180. Gonna square root both sides. Z is equal to, you're looking for factors that would simplify. 180 divided by x. Second graph goes to the table. 5 and 36. I'm going to write the square root of 36 first, and then the square root of 5. The reason is because this one simplifies to 6, and then you just rewrite this one, square root of 5, and that is the answer. Let's try this again. The one that is easier for me to solve for is the y. So I'm going to do 6 divided by 8 is equal to 8 divided by y. We cross multiply. 64 is equal to 6y divided by 6 to both sides. Simplify that. Gives you that. You can write it as a decimal. I'm going to write it as a fraction just because the rounding will mess up our problems on the other parts. So you can write the decimal. Make sure that you put the marking of the 6 point repeating. So I'm going to write it down. 0.6 repeating is the y value. But since I have to use it to solve for the other problems, I'm going to write this decimal approximation. And you just hit math, enter, 32 thirds. 32 thirds is the value I'm using. Okay. So now I'm going to solve for z. Remember, you start with the side that is next to the variable you're looking for. So y divided by z is equal to z divided by y plus z. So we figured out that the y value was 32 over 3. We're going to add these two things together, and that means that the hypotenuse of the big triangle, you see how I already have this on the calculator? You can just do plus 6. It gives you that mess. And so you can hit math, enter, and it's 50 thirds. If you're using decimal approximations, this is going to be a little bit harder, but it'd be the same process. You add them together. So let me set up z again. I said y. Y was 32 thirds divided by z is equal to z divided by the whole thing, which we figured out to be 50 thirds. We cross multiply. We have a z squared is equal to, and don't let those fractions scare you. We just put them in parentheses, 32 thirds times 50 thirds, like this. Hit enter, you get that mess, math, enter, and you have 1,600 divided by 9. And we're going to do the square root of both sides. And what I want you to do is separate them. Remember, you can do both. This is just a side note. That the square root of 1/3, remember, was the same thing as the square root of 1 divided by the square root of 3. And that's why I can separate them. Why do I want to do that? Well, they simplify. The square root of 9, which is easier for you to tell, simplifies to 3. And the square root of 1,600, so this is second x squared, gives you the square root symbol. 1,600 equals 40. And that's why I chose to make them in decimals, in fractions, so we can get a simplified answer. Whew! I know. Let's try that again. For the x, we start at the 6 divided by x is equal to x divided by the whole hypotenuse of the big triangle, which was 50 over 3. Very good. We're going to cross multiply. So even though the numbers look ugly, we're still doing the same thing over again. 6 times, and how do you put that in the calculator? I recommend a parentheses, 50 divided by 3. Hit enter, and you get 100. If you did the decimal approximation, you would get the wrong answer or something really close to it. That's why I wanted fractions. X squared, then you do the square root of both sides. 10 is equal to x.